On this edition of the program, the Texas tornado has hit. Jasmine Crocket launches into the Democratic Senate primary, and Chase is calling Allred out. We also take a look at the Republicans. Is all of this conspiring to see Senator Ken Paxton, of all people, be sworn in after the midterms? Meanwhile, Bill Scher joins the program to talk about the resurgent Democrats and the failing, sad Trump administration, at least in his point of view. It's all coming up.
The following is brought to you by Just Another Pilot.
Welcome, everybody, to the Politics program for December 10th, 2025. Your old pal, Justin Robert Young, joining you here in Austin, Texas, the center of the state that has a lot to say. Two big, hairy primaries that are burbling. I don't know why I went on Medea there. They are exciting, and we're going to get into that in a second. Bill Scher is going to join the show to talk about the case for the resurgent Democrats. It's a good conversation. And then we're going to talk about more Epstein stuff being unsealed, the Republicans' answer to the enhanced Obamacare credits, and why the Trump administration is now doing damage control for their signature economic cornerstone, the tariffs. Not a great look. But we begin with the news.
How about this new one they have, their new star, Crocket? How about her?
She's the new star of the Democrat Party, Jasmine Crocket. They're in big trouble.
But you have this woman, Crocket. She's a very low IQ person.
I watched her speak the other day. She's definitely a low IQ person.
Crocket. Oh, man.
She's a very low IQ person.
Somebody said the other day she's one of the leaders of the party. I said, you got to be kidding.
Now they're going to rely on Crocket. Crocket's going to bring them back.
If you are only listening to the podcast, that just sounds like Donald Trump insulting Jasmine Crocket. And that's all you see, or hear rather, in that ad. You see Jasmine Crocket slowly turning to the camera and smiling. The idea being that she's a star. Donald Trump's a buffoon. He's a fool. Who on earth would say something so totally unaligned with reality about somebody who is so clearly a new progressive force of nature, and indeed the next Democratic senator from the state of Texas, Jasmine Crocket? You know what? A long, strange trip it's been. Exploded onto the national stage when she got into an argument that felt a little bit more Jerry Springer than C-SPAN with Marjorie Taylor Greene, who, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Jasmine Crocket now might have more in common than they would have liked to admit initially. She has been a spitfire. She has been somebody who is a fighter against the Trump administration. And now she is, at least according to polling, the favorite to win the Democratic nomination. And so you already saw your first domino fall with Jasmine Crocket getting in, and that is Colin Allred, who did okay running against Ted Cruz in the 2024 election has just pieced out. He's going to run for the House again. Okay. Well, why? Because Colin Allred didn't want to be blamed. I think Colin Allred actually, this is rare in politics, but he saw 3 steps ahead. And he saw that 3 steps ahead, there is more money and energy behind James Tallarico. He is a Texas state legislator from the Austin area, a man of the cloth, who is a liberal Democrat. There's more energy behind Tallarico. Tallarico did Rogan. And so Colin Allred knows, okay, look, at a certain point, we're going to start seeing polls where Allred, Tallarico, Crocket is listed kind of like this University of Houston TSU poll that went from September to October. Crocket 31, Tallarico 25, Beto O'Rourke, who's not running, but he was listed in this one at 25, and then Allred at 13. Like, writing's on the wall. He's eventually going to be pressured to drop out. So does he want to be pressured to drop out when he can't run for anything else? Or does he just want to punch out right now and go back to the House, lick his wounds, figure this one out down the road? That's the idea for Colin Allred. It is a bit of an interesting phenomenon because, old enough to remember when Colin Allred was the future of the Democratic Party. But, life happens to you fast in this game. So that leaves it to a 1-on-1 matchup. Jasmine Crocket versus James Tallarico. And let me just give you my first blush instincts on this race for what it's worth. Tallarico reacted to Jasmine Crocket getting in with that commercial, which I think is asinine. That is an asinine commercial. It is very much of a position that believes that a lot of people know who she is, a lot of people know what she stands for, and that she is just a ready-made star to be delivered to the main stage of politics. She's going to pull off the upset of all upsets. Now, I think that commercial is asinine. Does it fit a narrative that you need to think grandiose? You need to think generational movement if you're going to put a Democrat in from Texas? Yeah. I do think you need to assume that you are somebody larger than life. You need to assume that you are going to take on the world, that you are going to win. And yeah, she won't be the first politician who thinks that the world revolves around her. But if you want to be that lady, well, you got to act like it. That's her acting like it. So that's what I thought of Jasmine Crockett's entrance into the race. James Tallarico, for whatever reason, put out a video where he welcomed her into the race. I hate it. Hate it. Hate it. If you are looked at as being afraid of Jasmine Crocket will eat you. I mean, again, Jasmine Crocket went into this race without even her voice being spoken. Everyone knows. She is putting an ad out that essentially just has President Donald John Trump calling her a low IQ idiot. Doesn't matter. Everybody knows that it's not true. That's her self-worth, right? For whatever you might think it's a good idea, it's a bad idea to release the ad, she has the cojones to do it. She looked at that ad and said, yep, that's my first one. We're going to ride into battle with that as the tip of our spear. It's a lot of confidence. Do you think that Jasmine Crocket is going to blink to shred James Tallarico on things? I don't. I think she'll do it as easy as breathing. So if you're James Tallarico and you don't want to come off as mean to a rising star black woman, right? I think that does factor in here. Then what you need to do is spend the day talking about your most popular position that she won't touch. Don't make this a personality contest. Make this a message. Because James Tallarico is going to be running to the center of this particular race. Jasmine Crocket will be on the left. You got to prove your theory of the case. Because, look, here's what, if you sit down with Texas Democrats in a bar and you actually just chop it up and ask them, like, hey, what would you guys need to do to get off the ground? They'd tell you, well, we just need to be able to get centrists through our primary process. The problem that we have is that, like, a Democrat can win in Texas. It's just, it can't win if they're super progressive, and that's the only people that'll get through the primary. Well, at a certain point, you got to prove your theory of the case. You got to prove that you can beat back a progressive challenger. I would assume that Jasmine Crockett's going to be the nominee. And I would say, should the other side of this bracket turn out the way that at least one of the candidates wants, I believe that Jasmine Crocket debating Wesley Hunt, two representatives, young, exciting, black, they could sell out Cowboy Stadium. I'd go. Come on, give me fireworks. I think it would fit both of them. I think that both of them would love it. You do some joint rally, some charity that everybody can agree on. Jerry Jones would love it. I'm just putting it out there right now. I don't think it works for anybody else. I don't think it works if Cornyn is the nominee. I don't think it works if Paxton is the nominee. But if it's Jasmine Crocket and Wesley Hunt, they're going to put fireworks on stage. We deserve to see it in a stadium as a Texas resident. Now, if you are afraid of Jasmine Crocket getting the nomination, it is because you have read polling about what happens to Jasmine Crocket when she does win. And that is that a lot of independents that lean more conservative in this state than they do in many others would tend to favor any Republican over Crocket, including what is looked at as a uniquely vulnerable candidate in Attorney General Ken Paxton. So this is that same University of Houston TSU poll. Again, this is September to early October, so it was a little bit ago. Sample of 1,650 registered voters. It is within the margin of error, which is 2.4, but Paxton over Jasmine Crocket, 49-47. Now, to be fair, it's also Paxton over James Tallarico. By more, actually, by 3. Either of them, right now, as the race stands, feels like they are particularly strong. They're both going to be looked at as more leftward than, say, somebody like Beto, who was thought of as more in the center and then said more and more progressive things in the general, which was very odd. But let's flip on over to the Republican side, because we've had a few polls recently, including a coefficient poll from December 1st to December 3rd, 1,022 likely voters, that has John Cornyn, who is holding on for his life here, over Ken Paxton, 28-27, Wesley Hunt at 19 in that. But we're still looking at a pretty flat landscape there. You know, some of these, like the University of Houston poll had Cornyn at 33, Paxton at 34, Hunt at 22. We're going to see a lot more polling now that Texas filing day is done. So everybody knows who's in, who's out, who's running, who's not. Now that that's the case, we're going to see more numbers here. But the fear for Democrats is that the only way that Attorney General Ken Paxton, who is looked at as too far to the right by Republicans, who is looked at as corrupt, had an impeachment trial come against him by way of his own staff. His wife filed for divorce on biblical grounds, a rich oppo file to attack him. The one thing that Ken Paxton has is he's got all the MAGA folks. He has been loyal to Donald Trump without a eyelash of distance between the two of them. Whatever Donald Trump wants, that's what Ken Paxton wants, and Ken Paxton takes action by way of his position of Attorney General. The Cornyn camp was really mad that Wesley Hunt got into this race. The Wesley Hunt campaign is begging John Cornyn to realize he's dead in the water. They spent $50 million to boost his name ID and to remind people that, hey, John Cornyn's not so bad, but there are many people on the Republican side that just quite simply don't like him. Then there's the Trump question. I don't think there's any chance that Donald Trump doesn't give Ken Paxton an endorsement. The only question would be, will it be the only endorsement? Wesley Hunt believes that it would be a very easy thing for Donald Trump to split that endorsement. And then if they're both endorsed, then now the MAGA vote is free to go wherever it wants. They don't believe that Cornyn's going to get that. And he's certainly not going to get a solo endorsement. It's awesome. Dude, I got to get out here. I got to see some of these events. It's going to be fun. This is your update brought to you by TakePoliticsSeriously.com. It's where you need to go if you want to support the show. It's also our Substack. You can sign up for the mailing list. Guys, my fingers work. My fingers, they work. I actually just wrote a column. It wasn't a transcription of a thing that I said into a microphone. No. Right from my brain into my fingers, onto the keyboard, and into your heart. I read American Canto, the Olivia Nuzzi book. I contrasted that with Ryan Liz's Substack. If you don't know either of those two names, you can read all about it. It's a huge, massive media scandal that involves a digital affair, an emotional affair. Yeah, to call it digital is probably a little bit too antiseptic. An emotional affair between Nuzzi and then presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. while Nuzzi was engaged to Ryan Lizza, then of Politico. All of their careers were turned upside down. Bobby Kennedy Jr. is in D.C. He is the Secretary of Health and Human Services. He was doing a pull-up contest with Sean Duffy yesterday on Monday. Meanwhile, Nuzzi lost her job. Lizza lost his job. Nuzzi got another job at Vanity Fair. And then Lizza ran enough Substack posts impugning her that she lost that one. We talk all about it. It's a good time. TakePoliticsSeriously.com. You can sign up to the newsletter for free. But if you want to, pay money, help out the podcast, get 2 bonus episodes, you can do that too. I'm not your dad, so do whatever you want. Senate Republicans Bill Cassidy and Mike Crapo unveiled a new health care bill creating government-funded health savings accounts to replace enhanced Obamacare subsidies expiring at year's end. Their proposal, aligned with Trump's push to send money directly to patients, contrasts sharply with the Democrats' plan to extend the subsidies for 3 years. Multiple GOP factions are pitching competing ideas, including a limited 2-year extension and an extended HSA flexibility, underscoring the party's lack of consensus ahead of a key vote. If Congress fails to act, subsidies revert to 2010 levels on New Year's Eve, raising premiums for millions. The Democratic bill is expected to fall short of its 60-vote threshold to become or to pass through the Senate chamber, be sent to the House, where it would definitely be dead. The big push against the Obamacare subsidies is in the House, not the Senate, but the fact that the Senate can't agree what to do is telling. This was why the Democrats shut down the government. Let's remember. It doesn't appear like they've gotten much leverage out of it. And this has kind of fallen, down on the list of things that people talk about on a daily basis. The health savings accounts are essentially stimulus that then you can apply to medical stuff like insurance. The people that are against the Obamacare subsidies essentially believe that the insurance companies are bluffing, that they are sending all these notices saying, oh, your premium's going to go up, your premium's going to go up, your premium's going to go up. The steadfast belief within the Republican caucus, especially in the House, is that they don't mean it. They're not going to jack up their rates so high that people drop out and they don't have any money at all. They believe that this is a scare tactic to get the government money that was coming from the COVID era, to keep that going forever. Because once you have free money, you don't want to get rid of the free money, right? It's free money. Keep this free money around. That is the thought from the Republicans in the House, at the very least. A federal judge granted the Justice Department's request to release scores of records from the Ghislaine Maxwell sex trafficking case following passage of the Epstein Files Transparency Act, which mandates public disclosure of all unclassified Epstein-related materials by December 19th. Judge Paul Eaglenmayer said that the law clearly requires modifying the existing protective order, but sharply rebuked the DOJ for previously misleading the public and failing to treat victims with proper care. Maxwell did not oppose unsealing, but warned it could prejudice a planned retrial. The Trump administration's push comes amid renewed political pressure for anything Epstein. We're just going to keep living in this Epstein thing, huh? We are, I think it was Thomas Massie that said, you will know that the Epstein files are released because people go to prison. Which, I don't know. I mean, if he knows something that the rest of us don't, boy, would it be nice to have it out there. Because, there was this moment last week where they put out pictures of Epstein's home in the Caribbean. And it's like kind of weird, I guess. He's got a dentist chair in there, which, I mean, as one does, I guess. And finally, President Trump's tariffs are, at least assumedly, inflicting enough economic damage that the White House is now scrambling to offset the fallout. New farm aid funded by tariff revenue underscores a circular dynamic. Trade policies causing farmers pain, and now the government is paying for their relief. China has resumed limited soybean purchases, but high input costs and weak demand have left U.S. farmers in a precarious position. Despite tariffs, China says that they have achieved a record $1 trillion trade surplus, showing little strain. Meanwhile, U.S. manufacturing is shrinking and consumer sentiment is at a 74-year low. Still, the administration are defending their tariffs as leveling the playing field. I'm going to make this very, very clear. Donald Trump got elected because people were mad about the Biden economy. Now, there's a lot of other stuff that went into it. There was a lot of reasons why a lot of people voted for him, and he won the popular vote. But the number one was that Joe Biden didn't take the economy seriously. The charge for Trump is going to be that he took it too seriously and he made dumb decisions, and that the tariffs were dumb decisions, and he will continue to have to deal with them. There is no doubt that right now, costs are high, people are bummed, and they do not blame Biden anymore. They blame Donald John Trump. That's your update. TakePoliticsSeriously.com, where you need to go if you want to support the show and read my column reviewing Olivia Nuzzi's American Canto and Ryan Lizza's Substack response. Little meta media analysis in there. You know, I want to do it. TakePoliticsSeriously.com. I'd like to welcome back to the program Mr. Bill Scher to take a look, a little bit behind into 2024 or 2025, sorry, and mostly into 2026. It's been a hell of a year. Bill, welcome back to the show.
Always a pleasure, despite living in, the hell times. It's always a treat to see your face.
Well, I'll tell you what, it seems like, at least by my sticking my finger into the air and catching the vibes, gusts of wind, that right now it is in ascendancy, at least on the Democratic side of the aisle. Look back into 2025 and tell me the best piece of news from the Democratic perspective that you can see as we now pull this one on into the station.
I don't know if it's a singular piece of news. I just think all the elections, the regular 2025 elections,
so anything from the special elections and the off year stuff that happened on beginning of November.
Everything points in the same direction.
Yes.
Regardless of quality of candidate, everything is showing, Democratic overperformance relative to a year ago, red state, blue state, swing area, what have you. And again, it shouldn't be shocking. This is pretty standard. This is
kind of what happens. Yeah.
Right. This is sort of normal pendulum swinging, perhaps magnified by the total political ineptitude of the Trump administration, and the fact that he governs by narcissism and not by political savvy. But everything's pointing in the wrong direction for them, and it obviously things can happen in a year's time. Some external event could occur that would create a kind of rally around the flag effect. You could have candidate quality could drop in theory, and you put up unelectable people. But the more logical presumption is that 2026 is going to be a blue wave year. I mean, again, I can't know how big the wave is going to be. It only takes a trickle for Democrats to take the House.
The House,
so
yeah.
They really got to screw it up super badly to blow that. But the Senate looks a bit more in play, even though that map is really uphill. And it would make it easier for Democrats to recruit candidates and say, look, you got a good shot here. This is worth going for.
Well, we're in filing deadline period now, right? At least for the Senate. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's interesting because there is that Trump distortion effect, right? Where politics is just more in front. I had a very naive thought that Trump 2.0 would be covered less breathlessly than the first Trump administration, but that obviously was not in the cards. So it is, again, back like it was during the first administration, where every day it's another thing, and either it's another thing that is embarrassing for the administration or it's another thing that the administration is putting out on Front Street because they want the attention. The one big difference is that in this version, everybody in the Trump administration is going to act like Donald Trump. There's very few people that are going to, represent any other element of that Republican coalition.
No one's tapping the brakes.
Nobody. But at the same time, I the normal snapback that happens when one party holds, the three levers of government is happening now. And it seems like everybody is very excited about it on the Democratic side, but almost from a point of like, they thought it might not. Like there was an element of kind of hopelessness that now has been dispelled and faith has been renewed. Does that track for you?
Think, at the front end of 2025, I think a lot of Democrats were like, we're just going to be a fascist country now. Like all is lost. The media is totally in the tank for Trump, and our Democrat leaders are feckless, and so all is lost. And look, there's still plenty of people on the left that don't care for how the media covers Trump, and don't care for Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, or other Democratic strategist types. So those tensions are still there, and I think very few Democrats assume everything's a lock in 2026. But there's an abundance of hope, an abundance of belief that you're not seeing as much of all the elections are going to be rigged for Trump. There's no point even trying. People see like, we can win the governor of Virginia. We can win the governorship of New Jersey. We can even win obscure down ballot races like Public Utilities Commission in Georgia. Democrats flipped the mayor's seat in Roswell, Georgia, this week. Stuff like that's happening, and so that allows for hope. That allows for energy, door knocking, donations, candidate recruitment. I don't think any of that's going to be a problem for Democrats.
Yeah. And yet, that Tennessee 7 special election on Tuesday, which had been kind of set up and then delivered, the results were what, you would assume would be good news. Many people rightly pointed to it as good news for Democrats in that it was a slide from the Trump 2022 margin in that district. And yet in my timeline, I see the age-old, Centralia fire that will never go out on the left side of the aisle, where it's if Afton Bain had been more centrist, then she would have come even closer, if not won. That is going to be more of a conversation as we move into 2026, as these primaries begin to pick up. I do think that you are going to see a very strident battle on a lot of different fronts from that perspective. Is there any worry from your point of view that is something that can consume some of this moment of excitement, hope, and unity?
I don't think it should be a worry for Democrats that's going to self-sabotage them come November 2026. I do think there is an ongoing debate between left versus center, to use these terms crudely. What is the right way to go? Do we need to have more moderate candidates? Do we need to have fire-breathing progressive populists? There are certain primaries that's going to get hashed out. Maine Senate, Michigan, forget Senator Governor where that's more in play. But so I think you're going to have a few places like that where that's going to get adjudicated at the primary level. What happened in 2025 didn't adjudicate it one way or another. Mickey Sherrill and Abigail Spanberger were more moderate-ish and did very well. You can look at the city level and say, well, Mondami beat Andrew Cuomo, who was not a Republican, but he was started acting like a Republican over the course of
as far as New York City goes. Yeah.
Right. You had in Seattle another Democratic socialist candidate, Wilson, beat a more moderate incumbent. So there's definitely
everybody got something this year. On the left. Yeah. Everybody got.
And you can look at the Tennessee race and say, oh, if she was more moderate, this might have been even closer. Or you could say, hey, she was a fire-breathing progressive and she still overperformed. You can interpret it either way you want. So it's not settled. It hasn't been settled for a long time.
I don't think it'll be settled when I die. So,
But sometimes one side's got more of an obvious upper hand than the other. And I don't think anyone's really got the upper hand right now. And I also, and so it's interesting and important in terms of the future of the Democratic Party. I don't think it's going to be a determining factor in how well Democrats do in 2026, because I think that's primarily driven by people's disgust and distress with the incumbent party, with the party in power, and that usually makes the opposition parties' divisions secondary.
I mean, without a doubt, I think that there will be a referendum, and I think Trump will push it to be a referendum on Trump. I think Trump will see it. I mean, if you look at, the plans to do a midterm convention and stuff like that, like they want to nationalize it. Now, I think there's an argument on the right to say that's the only way that they could turn out their vote, because that's the other big thing about this from the right side of the aisle, is that not only do you have natural headwinds that normally punish a party that has that much power, but also you've got a coalition where it does appear that only one guy can bring it out in its full force, and he's no longer going to be on the ballot. So unless he takes a very unusual for him role in the midterms, where he has normally been at arm's length if he thinks things are not going well, then it's going to be hard for them to turn out their voters. Whereas now the Democratic Party has the more reliable voting base that is going to be very fired up.
I think the Republican Party is in a much bigger trough than the Democrats. They both have their divisions. They're both ideologically unsettled and in flux in multiple ways. But I think the Republican Party is worse in this regard. They allowed themselves to become a cult of personality. Mm-hmm. It allowed us to be defined by a single person, and a person who doesn't have a real set ideology, purposefully upended past ideological planks of the Republican Party that had been settled, now no longer are. Things like tariffs, things like their posture on the world stage, in terms of use of government largesse, all these things are unsettled, and Trump is clearly a lame duck. Even he acknowledges he's not going to be on the ballot in 2028, even though there's still Trump 20 merch you can buy on the website, but everyone knows he's not going to be on the ballot in 2028. You're starting to see individual Republicans look past him, create a little bit of distance. It's slow and gradual. There's still a lot of sleuthing going on, but you're seeing a bit more of it than you had been. But even that does not automatically mean, Republicans are going to snap back to the traditional conservative party that they were pre-Trump. They may go MAGA 2.0. They may follow, with J.D. Vance or Marjorie Taylor Greene. They may go in a wilder direction where you might have a Taylor Greene say, Trump ceased to be America first with this Venezuela drug boat campaign. And he was obsessed with the Nobel Peace.
That is exactly what she's saying. Yeah.
And he's so obsessed with the Nobel Peace Prize, he couldn't just walk away from Ukraine, which he should have. And so he dragged this thing out for his 4 years. So they could go farther in that America first type direction, or you might get a Glenn Youngkin or Spencer Cox saying, this Trump thing, we rode this train for 12 years, and every time we do terrible in the midterms, and his polls are terrible. This just didn't work. The Reagan model works. Let's get back to that. Again, I'm just spitballing here. I'm just saying I don't think it's a clear path what comes next from Trump, and because they're less settled ideologically, it could go in the range of possibilities for Republicans and what goes next, and whether it actually would be electorally potent or not, I think is much more up in the air than it is on the Democratic side.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I think both have their main issues. And I do think that there's been a lot of sugar high that can come from being a party out of power, because you can just point, especially if Donald Trump's superpower right now is missing. The superpower in the first term, regardless of all the turbulence, was the economy. And the economy has not only not snap back, it is in many ways getting worse for Americans. And they have not had the right message in any way. Some of his messaging has been positively Biden-esque in just denying the fact that things are not going well for people, which is odd considering you just saw that did not play particularly well. I don't know why politicians have forgotten or presidents have forgotten the other party drove the car into the ditch. It takes a little while to dig it out. That seemed to work pretty well for him. I don't know why either of these last two presidents have been able to say that, but still, let me ask you this about going forward. One of the big conversations amongst Democratic circles was the state of the groups, as they are called, the special interest groups that in the mind of many pushed Democratic politicians into purity tests that hampered them specifically with independence. And you can point to probably most notably immigration groups, LGBTQ groups, and climate groups. What is the state of the groups as we move into a cycle where you're going to start to have people on stage being asked to raise their hand if they support X, Y, and Z? And through these primaries, that's when you wind up getting tagged with things that can be run against in the general. Do you think that there has been any kind of meaningful evolution on that? Or is everything going to be kind of the same as it was back in 2018, 2020?
I think I've seen, I don't read the Substack religiously or anything, but I think I've seen Matt Iglesias make this argument that the groups have too much power on the left. And look, any candidate, particularly at the presidential level, but also governor, senator, what have you, is going to be petitioned by interest groups, whether if
Yes.
on the Democrat side, it's on the left, the Republican side, it's on the right. They all want you to sign your name on their paper and lock you in. That's just politics.
It's just the way it goes.
What's that?
That's just the way it goes. I agree with you.
And it is the burden is on the candidate to be intelligent about it, and to judge each questionnaire or each appeal and say, you know what, I can do this one. This one, I believe in this. I believe in this, but I don't know it's going to make sense in the general. I got to dance around this one or this one. You know what? I just don't agree with this one. That's got to be a big enough person to say, you know what? I agree with you on like 90% of stuff, but this one goes too far for me. You got to be a grown up about that stuff. And I don't think you need to have some sort of like campaign to like rein in the groups. Groups are going to exist. People are going to organize to advocate for their causes. And the politicians have to be the leaders and say, I'm with you here and I'm not with you here, and do it in a way that isn't alienating and say, you know what, there's a lot we can work on together, but you can't assume I'm going to be with you on every last little thing. And I think most ideological grous get that. I don't think there are a whole lot of groups that say, well, you know what, you won't sign my piece of paper here. Screw you. I'm not going to help you. I'm just going to take my marbles and go home. Most of them don't do that. So you just got to be, candid enough, grown up to have that conversation so you all can still work together if you disagree on some things.
My theory of the case on this is that it was really a reflection of how online a lot of, just politics in general has gotten more online. And this is not unique to the Democratic Party. I think that all politics has gotten very, very online, but it has given rise in power to some of the activist class that are incredibly loud online. And when they lead a dog pile, it can feel like the world is crumbling around you. I don't know whether or not this is going to be a big test for me throughout these primaries. And I don't think it's going to have a difference in the House. Again, we have a whole year to cover this. And so who knows what will happen. But I'm very interested in these primaries. If you do see a little bit more of a, I guess cynically you could call it spine, but, a political savvy to say, hey, some of these issues are kind of 80-20 and we were boxed into the 20% side of it, or the Democratic candidates found themselves on the 20% side of it. And so I'm not going to do that this time. I'm going to support the things that make sense. And if it means that some Democratic activists are screaming at me on Twitter, then it'll just make it a day that ends in Y.
Democrats should have learned this lesson in 2020. You had a lot of candidates that thought the winds are blowing, in the Bernie direction, Bernie was a candidate, so everyone's trying to run to be as Bernie-like as they could be. And the one guy that didn't was Joe Biden, and Joe Biden got the nomination. You might argue that there's other factors involved with that, but I think, I think at core, the Democratic electorate was not so Bernie-fied that they were willing to say, you know what, we got to do what makes the most electoral sense here and not check every last box. And everything that's transpired since then should also make people pause that it is possible to, on either side of the ledger, go one step too far and burn yourself, not just in terms of optics, but in terms of actual substance. And you can, you could argue for Joe Biden, for example, that inflation was bad globally and that everything is his fault. But still having a huge price tag on his main initial bill didn't help contain inflation,
nor did the transitory language. I think that
right.
Also,
so there was a slowness in recognition of the problem, and I might talk this about a different show. Like he could have done everything exactly the same policy wise, in my opinion, but just said at the first sign of inflation, this Trumpflation is about to kick us in the ass. I'm going to do everything I can to rein in this Trumpflation. And that means making sure the Fed can do what it has to do. It might take a little bit of time, but we're going to beat it. And at least it would have felt like he was on top of it. Whereas, the Fed did do what it had to do, and it did actually rein in inflation, but people felt in the process of it that no one was home dealing with it and left Biden and then Kamala very, very vulnerable. The point I'm trying to get at is, the substance and the impact of policies does matter. Right now the dominant force are the Trump policies. Trump policies dominate everything. The biggest one, I think, really is tariffs, because the prices affect everybody throughout the country. No matter what income level you are, you buy something. Even if you have a lot of disposable income, you're still annoyed if you're spending $5 more on a food item that you didn't spend on before. And just trying to say like, oh, nothing to see here, it doesn't wash. Now, we also have coming in some Democratic big city mayors who are going to get a lot of spotlight. And particularly New York and Seattle, come to mind. Now, you also have, and you have some existing mayors. You have one in Chicago, who's very, very progressive. You have one in San Francisco, who's more moderate. And let me just tell you, just my bias here, because obviously people might look at me as more of a moderate type person. I have a general hesitancy about anyone in executive position without experience, without municipal government experience. And that applies to New York, Seattle, and San Francisco. And even I think would apply to the Brandon Johnson in Chicago. I don't think he had much experience going in, but
his approval rate would betray that as well.
But I forget if he had other municipal government stuff in his resume before he got in there. So some people have been very complimentary towards the mayor in San Francisco so far, and Trump's given him a bit of a pass. But he did kind of a boneheaded thing a few weeks ago where he named someone to the Board of Supervisors, which is like their city council, who was completely out to lunch and he had a business full of health violations, and he had to throw her under the bus. And that kind of thing might be a one-off and doesn't necessarily impact your day-to-day policy making. But to me, it was kind of like, are you really killing on policy? Or are you coasting on the policies of your predecessor? Because you just got there. And even though she might have lost re-election, doesn't mean that she was necessarily doing a bad job, because people have been very anti-incumbent across the board in a lot of places. And if you really don't know how to handle the levers of government because you've never done it before, it's not going to bite you in the ass down the line. And this could happen in San Francisco, could happen in New York, could happen in Seattle, could happen in Chicago. I don't necessarily think that's going to be more important than policy botches at the federal level by Donald Trump. But you better believe if certain things do go awry in these big Democratic cities, Republicans are going to do everything they possibly can to magnify it and try to tar the entire party with it.
As somebody who has been around the Democratic Party ecosystem for a while, is there any point during 2025 when you woke up and you're like, the Democratic Party's main policy positions are drawing attention to the downstream effects of tariffs and keeping Epstein in the news, and wonder whether or not this was a Freaky Friday scenario?
What's the first part of that premise again?
The tariffs, the fact that the Democratic Party now, and I agree with you, like the right thing to do. In fact, I thought that they could have spent more time this year talking about especially the effects on small businesses for tariffs, because I knew a lot of those personally, of people that were very, very affected by them. But that's not traditionally a Democratic perspective. This is a major area where the party's ideologies are getting scrambled. Yes.
And as someone who has read a lot of presidential history, I actually run a presidential book club, and we've been doing a lot of 19th century stuff. We just did McKinley. Tariffs are such a huge thing defining the parties pretty much from the early 1800s through Woodrow Wilson, because Wilson essentially ends the regime of government largely funded by tariffs. That's when the first progressive income tax is enacted. Although, as I like to point out, William Howard Taft should get credit for that too, because he got the constitutional amendment passed that allowed Wilson to pass that law. But until then, particularly in the late 19th century, tariffs were this huge political issue where Republicans were known as pro-tariff and Democrats were more anti-tariff. But that started to change as Republicans got more populist, and that's why Taft introduced the concept of the progressive income tax, which was designed as a way to lessen our reliance on the tariff. But Democrats then picked up that baton, and more recently, Republicans were known as the free trade party, and Democrats more of a fair trade party. But Obama was pushing more free trade type agreements on the premise that was going to be good for the long haul for the American economy. Donald Trump took advantage of backlash to that, made the Republicans more of an anti-free trade party, pro-tariff party, and Democrats for a time were not quite sure what to do with
which way the wind was blowing. Yeah,
right. But I think you're starting to see more and more Democrats say, even those who are more in the fair trade, very labor-oriented, want to make sure we're protecting, steel and industries of old school, work with your hands, kind of industries. Yep. Even them are recognizing everybody hates higher prices.
Yeah.
And the easiest way to say you're going to lower prices is by lowering tariffs. So you might try to nuance it in some way, say we need to be more strategic about it and more surgical. But I don't think you're going to find a lot of Democrats in 2026 saying they're going to keep the tariffs.
I don't think so either. All right. Last question. Which hopeful for 2028 won 2025 on the Democratic side?
I don't want to answer this, because
you have your big yearly thing there. So all right, just give us a preview then generally of who you think did well, if not your rankings.
Well, you know what I mean. There's an easy name here, which is Gavin Newsom, and just looking at there's not a lot of 2028 polling, but there is some. And you can go to Real Clear Politics, and you can just see over the from January to December, Gavin's up, Kamala's down, but still up there, but down from where she was, and almost everyone else just kind of below tier, below that. And so I don't want to go so far as say Gavin Newsom's got this locked up and everybody loves Gavin Newsom. He's got no detractors, because he certainly does. And I think he said certain things that could bite him in the ass down the line. But there's no arguing that he was the most visible
Yes.
attack dog of anyone in the 2028 field, and being the most visible has helped him lift up his national poll numbers. That's just objective fact.
I think it's hard to say that anybody has outpaced him. He has put a lot of time and effort into it. Be curious to see when and if people start swinging on each other. Maybe even just
I think there's already a little bit of that. I mean, you saw Josh Shapiro took a big roundhouse at Kamala Harris. So
yeah,
I think that jockeying has already begun.
Yeah. Well, we will all watch it with bated breath, and I'm sure we'll talk to Bill along the way for the midterms. Thank you so much for joining us, my friend. Where can people find you?
WashingtonMonthly.com. That's where I write at least twice a week. And I'm pretty active on Blue Sky these days. So that's billscher.bsky.social.
And where's your presidential book club? Is that virtualized or is that just in person?
You actually can't do a virtualize it. So I am the president of the Calvin Coolidge Coolidge Presidential Library Museum, which is here in Northampton, Massachusetts. It's a few blocks from me. And as part of my volunteer duties there, I run a monthly presidential book club. We go in order. You can join anytime. And if you go to the Calvin Coolidge Library website, which is through the Northampton's Forbes Library, you can email us there, get on our email list. And I do it in person in the library, but there's a Zoom component as well. And so we do have people who are involved from across the country.
I think you're going to get a few more. I think this is the exact audience that would be jacked for a Calvin Coolidge presidential book club.
So the next one is Teddy Roosevelt.
And good.
And we're meeting, we take December off. So we meet at the end of the fourth Monday of the month usually. So it's fourth Monday of January. So you got time to read Theodore Rex by Edmund Morris, which is one of the great presidential biographies. So if you don't worry about not starting with Washington, you can jump in now and, plenty good ride between here and Donald Trump.
Did you know that at Tokyo Disney, the Disney Sea Resort, there is a Teddy Roosevelt themed restaurant on a replica of the Queen Mary, because that whole park was supposed to be built in Long Beach, and Tokyo Disney, the Oriental Land Company that runs it, bought the plans for this spiked park, and the restaurant is Teddy Roosevelt themed because there is a teddy bear that has become essentially the mascot of Tokyo Disney and Disney Sea in particular. And so Theodore Roosevelt, the reason why the teddy bear has its name, has a themed restaurant in Japan. It is one of the most surreal things that I've ever been around.
We also got the Nobel Peace Prize from negotiating a treaty between Russia and Japan. So I imagine that might be
there we go.
In play as well.
Everything connects. Bill, thank you again.
Thank you. Take care.
And that'll wrap it up for us today. Politics, written and hosted by me, Justin Robert Young, for Dog and Pony Show Audio in Austin, Texas. Will Saddleberg is our producer. You can email me, theyoungamerican@gmail.com. Find, follow, and share video clips of the show on TikTok, Justin R. Young, Instagram, Justin R. Young, Twitter, Justin R. Young, and you can hit me up on YouTube. Politics is the account. We love our YouTube audience. Always a good time. Please support us with a one-time donation. PayPal.me/payjury, PAYJURY. Venmo is Justin-Young-20. Venmo money isn't real. We're all aware of this. Cash App is PX3 Cash. You can send me anything you'd like in the mail. Post Office Box 153184, Austin, Texas 78715. We got a Christmas card to the We're Not Wrong program. You want to send Christmas cards to PX3 or to me and my family? That's the place that you do it. Post Office Box 153184, Austin, Texas 78715. But the only place to get bonus content is TakePoliticsSeriously.com. Paying members get 2 bonus episodes each and every week. Less than $100. great stocking stuffer. If you know somebody in your life that they got a bad media diet, all right? Too much junk, too much opinion, too much partisanship. You want to give them a little vegetables? And we're like not bad vegetables. Yeah, we're like, fried. You have like a little bit of the char on it. It's great seasoning. Like we are vegetables, but we're very well prepared vegetables. Head on over there, take politics seriously, get somebody you know and love a annual subscription under $100. They're going to get 4 episodes a week. That's a lot in the offing, but they can work up to it. Finally, our founding tier, get your name read at the end of the podcast like these fine folks. Sonny Black, L3PO, Peepaw, Scott, Middle-Aged Mike, Tom, Nick, Sarah Jeannie, Jeremy, Pro Idiot, Chiller Tomatoes, Neil, Casey. Oh yeah, it's Adam, AB Puppy, Dr. Whiskey, Fat Tony's PJs from New York. Will the Borge B, Michael, Matt, DP4 Bongo, Andrew, Edwin, Sam, Andrew, Phil, Edison, Paul, Gloria Young, my mother, a dog named Checkers, Jerry, Trucker, John, Berkeley, Steven, and Zombie Doc. Join their ranks. Join their fun ranks. They give thanks, and I give thanks to them. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. Foundational tier. That's it for us today. Friday's edition, we're going to have Matt Laszlo on. He is a member of the Washington, D.C. Press Corps. He is doing things unlike anybody else is doing them currently in the Washington, D.C. Press Corps, and he's got a bone to pick with the Washington, D.C. Press Corps. This man believes that the window of credibility for one of journalism's most important organs is closing by the minute. And people in that august group need to wake up and smell the coffee before they can't open their eyes anymore because the institution is dead, at least for human employment. That's all Friday. Till then, this is your old pal Justin Robert Young saying, some shows talk about politics. Others talk about politics. Still more discuss politics, but this is the only one that dares discuss. Hole 3.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Dog and Pony Show audio.